Chapter 3 From Philistia to Provincia, Syria-Palestina, 135 AD 390 AD, the administrative province of Roman Palestine. During Roman rule in Palestine, and more specifically between 135 AD and 390 AD, Palestine became one of the provincias of the empire. This is also a period from which many written records were preserved in a variety of languages: Latin, Greek, Aramaic, Hebrew, and also covered in the annals and texts of the new religion of Christianity. By this time, the name Palestine was more than a millennium old and had substantial currency. During the Roman period, the official administrative name of Palestine was consolidated and popularized in Latin and Greek, which were the two lingua francas of the Roman Empire and Eastern Mediterranean. These two languages affected trade, administration, education, religion, architecture, diplomacy, coinage, and key place names throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. The upgrading of Palestine by Hadrian, the official designation of the province of Syria-Palestina, 135 390 AD. In Roman times, a province, Latin, provincia, PL provincii, was the basic and, until 293 AD, largest territorial and administrative unit of the empire. A Roman provincia in the modern sense was a geographically defined official administrative unit. Provinces were generally governed by politicians of senatorial rank, former consuls, or top army commanders. The Romans also distinguished between two types of provinces: minor provinces, or procuratorial provinces, such as Judea in 1st century AD, and major provinces, or proconsular provinces, such proconsular provinces like Syria-Palestina, after 135 AD. In 135 AD, the Roman Emperor Hadrianus, reigned 117 to 138 AD, officially combined the minor Roman, procuratorial, province of Judea, comprising Judea and Samaria, with the old Philistia, the Galilee in the north and Idumea in the south to form a new major, proconsular, province of Syria-Palestina. According to some accounts, the new province was created following the military defeat of the Jewish revolt of Bar Kokhba in 135 AD. 4 years later, the official designation of the new province of Syria-Palestina was given in a 139 AD Roman military diploma granted for military service, a rectangular bronze tablet, which was discovered in Palestine near Nazareth in the late 19th century and was exhibited at the Louvre Museum de Villefos 1897. Issued by the Roman Emperor and lodged in the Military Archive of Rome, these military certificates were inscribed in bronze, confirming that the holder was discharged from the Roman armed forces and had received the grant of Roman citizenship with its privileges as a reward for military service. In addition to this military evidence, the first numismatic evidence for the province of Syria-Palestina comes from the period of Marcus Aurelius, emperor, from 161 to 180. However, the new province of Syria-Palestina should not be conflated with Roman Syria as a whole, as some historians do, or with either the separate Roman province of Syria Coel in the northern parts of Syria or Roman Phoenicia, modern Lebanon. The Roman and Hadrian's conception of Palestine had nothing to do with any biblical narratives or the Old Testament narrative of their Philistines. For Hadrian, in addition to a combination of political and military strategic calculations following the defeat of the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 135, the historical geographic considerations behind the official upgrading of Palestina by the Romans in the early 2nd century should also be taken into account. After all, Emperor Hadrian chose the 1,000-year-old name of Philistia, the most common geopolitical designation for Palestine used by Greek geographers and historians, long before the Old Testament stories were put together, and Hadrian combined Palestine with the southern parts of Syria. The Greek name for the country Palestine and the Latin name Palestina were frequently and repeatedly cited in classical literature and by classical Greek and Roman historians and poets with reference to the country between Egypt and Phoenicia. The metamorphosis of Palestine from Philistia to Palestina is not surprising when considering that the early 1st century Roman poet Ovid, one of the canonical poets of Latin literature, repeatedly invoked the term Palestina and adjective Palestino, Palestinian, in Metamorphoses and his other epic poems. 1 In Ars Amatoria, The Art of Love, Ovid also mentioned the seventh-day feast that the Syrian of Palestine, Palestino-Syro, observes, with reference to followers of Judaism in Palestine, who were in the 1st century AD one of the many religious groups in the country. Ovid and other Roman writers did not confine the term Palestiner and Palestino to the coastal region known as Philistia, but included the interior of the country. In c. 90 AD, another famous 1st century Greco-Roman author, Dio Chrysostom, c. 40 115 AD, an orator, philosopher, historian of the Roman Empire, born at Prusa, present-day Turkey, was quoted by Synesius, Greek bishop of Ptolemy, in modern Libya, in the early 4th century, referring to the Dead Sea as located in the interior of Palestine. Dio Chrysostom, 1951, Volume 5. 378-379. Another classical Roman poet of the 1st century AD, Publius Propineus Statius, in the Sylvae, refers to Liquors Palestini, Palestinian wine, Zehner 2005, 104, Feldman 1996, 565, which was produced in large quantities and was widely known throughout the Mediterranean region. Its fame was partly derived from the application of South Arabian spices and local herbs and the Palestinian aromatic balsam to winemaking in Palestine and the Arab region as a whole, something which Statius called liquors arabes, Zehner 2005, 104. In the course of the subsequent Byzantine period, large-scale production of Palestini liquors in Greater Palestina led to international commerce in the commodity, and Palestinian wine was exported around the Mediterranean region and in the Near East. Although religiously discouraged, the genre of wine poetry, al-Kamriyat, became a recurring theme in classical Arabic poetry of the Abbasid period in the Middle Ages. Ancient methods of winemaking survived in Palestine into the modern period, while the balsam shrub was reported to be cultivated in the Galilee in the early 19th century. Burkhard, 1822, 323. The administrative name of the new province, Syria-Palestina, was almost certainly inspired by the works of classical Greek and Roman historians, geographers and poets who had contributed so much to the spread and popularization of the name Palestina since the work of Herodotus in the 5th century BC. Considered by many to have been a classicizing humanist and one of the greatest and most accomplished of the Roman emperors, Hadrian was fond of Greek culture, historiography and literature. Burley, 1997. During his reign, he traveled extensively with the Roman military and visited nearly every province of the empire, including Palestine. An admirer of cultural Hellenization, he sought to make Athens the cultural capital of the empire and ordered the construction of many opulent temples in the city. Hadrian had served as the governor of Syria, giving him an intimate knowledge of the region. Burley, 1997. 75. He had traveled through Palestine and visited Gaza, the most powerful city of old Philistia. On his way to Egypt in 130 AD, Gaza began dating its coinage by a new era beginning with Hadrian's arrival, which can be narrowed down to July. Our Hadrian Festival was also founded there. Burley, 1997. 234. Hadrian's trip further encouraged the classicizing culture of the city and the building of many Greek temples there. The speed with which the new name of the administrative province of Syria-Palestina was widely adopted is evident in its use not only by establishment Roman historians and geographers who often defended the status quo, but also among Palestine-based early Christian apologists who were often philosophically radical and politically subversive. Greco-Roman historian Appian of Alexandria, c. 95 c. 165 AD, who flourished before, throughout and after the reign of Hadrian, wrote in his preface to Historia Romana, c. 150 AD, intending to write the history of the Romans, I have deemed it best to begin with the boundaries of the nations under their sway. Here, after Egypt, turning our course we take in Palestine, Syria, and beyond it a part of Arabia. The Phoenicians hold the country next to Palestine on the sea, and beyond the Phoenician territory Achoil, Syria, and the parts stretching from the sea as far inland as the river Euphrates, namely Palmyra and the sandy country round about, extending even to the Euphrates itself. Point 3. The new genre of early Christian apologetics focused on defending the new religion in philosophical terms and on equating Christianity with Greek philosophy. Early Christian apologists included prominent Palestine-based writers such Justine the Martyr and Origen. Justine the Martyr was born to a pagan family in Flavia Nablus, then a largely Greek-speaking town in the Roman province of Syria-Palestina, Parvis 2008. At the time, Flavia Neapolis was also a flourishing center of Greek philosophy and Platonism. Today, Justine is regarded as the foremost interpreter of the concept of the Greco-Christian logos in the 2nd century AD, Rokier 2002-22. Following his conversion to Christianity, Justine traveled to Rome during the reign of Antoninus Pius, 138-161 AD, and started his own Christian philosophical school. Justine was beheaded in Rome. Addressed to Antoninus, his sons and the Roman Senate, his first apology, c. 155 AD, passionately defended the morality of the Christian faith and provided various ethical and philosophical arguments to convince the Roman authorities to abandon their persecution of the fledgling sect. In the introduction to the first apology, Justin also refers to his native city, Flavia Neapolis in Palestine, point for both the official administrative name of the province of Syria-Palestina and the term Palestina continued for many years to be widely and interchangeably used by native Palestinian and Roman and Greek writers, geographers, historians and imperial administrators to refer to the area between the Mediterranean Sea and River Jordan. The Romans promoted further urbanization in Palestine, and the province of Syria-Palestina itself had a well-organized road network and an efficient traffic system as basic elements of proper imperial administration. The importance of Provincia Palestina can be seen by the fact that the Romans invested great resources in the urban infrastructure and transport system of their country, in labor and technological skill in road building. During much of this period of Roman Provincia Palestina, Jerusalem served as one of the two administrative and cultural hubs of the country, the other one being the city of Caesarea Palestina and the seat of the Roman governor and the royal court. Continuing the long Hellenistic tradition of changing place names and personal names in Palestine, a tradition which was actively pursued internally by Roman Jewish rulers and public intellectuals from King Herod the Great to Josephus, the city of Jerusalem was renamed by Emperor Hadrian, full name in Latin, Publius Aelius Hadrianus Augustus, as Aelia Capitolina, Wilkinson 1975. Capitolina was dedicated to Jupiter Capitolinus, the chief deity of the Roman state religion, while Aelia referred to Hadrian's own second name and to the name of Lucius Aelius Caesar, the father of Emperor Lucius, who was adopted by Hadrian and named heir to the throne, but died before Hadrian. The latter accelerated the Hellenistic tradition of renaming Palestine cities. Subsequently, Aelia Capitolina remained the official name of Jerusalem for more than 5 centuries until 638 AD, when the Arabs conquered the city and kept the first part of the name as Ilia. In fact, it seems that the Arabs began to use the name Ilia at a very early period, long before the Islamic conquest of the city. Gul, M. 1997, 114. The name Jerusalem almost became extinct, Aelia Capitolina becoming the common name for the city. Its Arabic version, Ilia, was still being used in medieval Arabic sources in the 10th century, together with the other Arabic name for Jerusalem, Beit al-Maqdis, al-Maqdisi 2002, 135. 144, Trevers 2004-2. However, a century later, during the Fatimid period, Muslim traveler Nasir Khusrau, who visited Jerusalem in 1047, reported that the people of Palestine and Al-Sham as a whole called Al-Bayt al-Maqdis, the holy city, by the name Al-Quds, Khusrau 1888. This is also the modern and current name of the city used by the Palestinians. Aelia Capitolina, due to its centrality under both the Romans and later the Byzantines, served as a starting point for no fewer than 7 highways. These 7 highways were later broadly reflected in the 16th century Ottoman walls and gates of the old city of Al-Quds. Their Hadrian column can be seen in the Madar floor mosaic map of the 6th century. See Chapter 4. The name has also survived in local modern Palestinian social memory and in the naming of the most spectacular Ottoman gate of the old city of Jerusalem, Bab ul-Amad, literally, their column gate, also known as Damascus Gate. Further developments from Syria-Palestina to Palestina. In the course of time, and especially from Vespasian, emperor from 69 to 79 AD onwards, the term Palestina began to supersede the longer Roman name of the province of Syria-Palestina. The territorial boundaries of Palestina in the time of the Romans embraced the coastal region of Palestine, Idumea, Judea, Samaria, Praeser, northern modern Jordan, and Trachonitis, modern Arab, Lejat, southeast of Damascus. Following Herodotus and classical literature, this Roman conception of Palestine applied to the country in the wider sense, to the area of the southern Levant between modern Lebanon and Egypt. The shift in the terminology from the official Roman province of Syria-Palestina, introduced by Emperor Hadrian to more and more emphasis on Palestine, is reflected in the works of important Roman writers such as Strabo, Pliny the Elder and Pomponius Mela, and classical Jewish authors including Josephus and Philo of Alexandria. The 1st century geography of Palestina by Strabo, Pliny the Elder and Pomponius Mela. Historical and geographical knowledge and power are inextricably linked, and the expansion and consolidation of the Roman Empire brought about the rise of encyclopedic multivolume works. In the 1st century AD there are 3 well-known geographical accounts of Palestine by a Greco-Roman geographer and historian Strabo, 64-63 BC-c. 24 AD, in his multi-volume work Geographica, Strabo 1917. This encyclopedic knowledge was based on his extensive travels throughout the Mediterranean region and Near East. B. Pliny the Elder, 23 to 79 AD, in his work Naturalis Historia, c. 78 AD. 5. C. Pomponius Mela, who was the first Roman geographer and wrote the only ancient treatise on geography in classical Latin, De Situ Orbis, a description of the world, written around 43 AD. The accounts of Strabo, Pliny the Elder and Mela all treat the country of Palestine in the wider sense, in the same way as the name applied by the classical Greek writers to the whole country. Pliny, Strabo and Mela may well derive some of their information on Palestine from earlier Hellenistic sources. Pliny's Naturalis Historia, c. 78 AD, is an encyclopedic book about the natural world written by a Roman author and naval commander who also belonged to Emperor Vespasian's inner circle. The geo-administrative term Palestina used in Naturalis Historia, Book V, chapters 13 and 14, reflects both the evolving place names of the time and the changes introduced by Vespasian. Geographically, Pliny uses Palestina in 2 distinct ways: Old Palestina, or Old Philistia, and the New Palestina, whose vast expanses reach all way to modern Lebanon and Syria. The next country on the coast is Syria, formerly the greatest of lands. It had a great many divisions with different names, the part adjacent to Arabia being formerly called Palestine, Palestina, or Old Philistia, and Judea, and Hollow Syria, then Phoenicia, and the more inland part Damascena, and that still further south Babylonia, as well as Mesopotamia between the Euphrates and the Tigris. Behind Sidon begins Mount Lebanon, a chain extending as far as Zamira in the district called Hollow Syria, Coel Syria, a distance of nearly 190 miles. Facing Lebanon Ephesus, with a valley between, stretches the equally long range of Counter Lebanon, which was formerly connected with Lebanon by a wall. Behind Counter Lebanon inland is the region of the 10 cities of the Decapolis in the Roman province of Syria-Palestina and later Byzantine Palestina Secundar, and with it the tetrarchies already mentioned, and the whole of the wide expanse of Palestine Palestina. Pliny 1991, Book V. The work of Pomponius Mela, a description of the world, Choreographia, although inferior by the standard of the works of Strabo and Pliny the Elder as well as by modern technical standards, was circulated widely in the course of Europe's great age of exploration from the end of the 15th century to the 18th century, and was translated into English. It remained highly influential throughout the modern period. Published in 44 CE, at the height of the Roman Empire, Mela's work was one of the world's earliest geoethnographies and is the earliest surviving geographical work in Latin. Romer 1998. This work was influenced by classical Greek sources and, like Herodotus, Mela describes Palestine in the wider sense, from Phoenicia in the north to Egypt in the south. Unlike Herodotus, however, Mela mentions Judea, but he correctly views it as a small part of the country he calls Palestina. In 43 AD, Mela spoke of the Arabs of Palestine, hic Palestine ist quartangit Arabas, and describes Syria and Palestina as follows. Syria holds a broad expanse of the littoral, as well as lands that extend rather broadly into the interior, and it is designated by different names in different places. For example, it is called Coel, Mesopotamia, Judea, Commagene, and Saphine. It is Palestine at the point where Syria abuts the Arabs, then Phoenicia, and then where it reaches Cilicia, Antiochia, which was powerful long ago and for a long time, but which was most powerful by far when Semiramis held it under her royal sway. Her works certainly have many distinctive characteristics. Two in particular stand out. Babylon was built as a city of amazing size, and the Euphrates and Tigris were diverted into once dry regions. 6. It is also fascinating what Meller had to say about Gaza and other important cities of the country he calls Palestina. In Semitic languages, the name Gaza means strong or fierce. Hebrew, strong. Etymologically, the Greek and Latin name, and Gaza, were probably a rendition of the Syriac, Gans, Gaz, which originated from Persian Ganj, treasure, store, granary. The ancient Egyptians called it Azarti, their prized city. Shah in 2005, 414, Katzenstein 1982. Mela goes on to describe the Palestine cities of Gaza, Ascalon and Jaffa, and refers to both Semitic and Persian connotations of the name Gaza. In Palestine, however, is Gaza, a mighty and very well fortified city. This is why the Persians call it their treasury. When Cambyses headed for Egypt under arms, he had brought here both riches and the money for war. Ascalon is no less important a city. Iope Jaffa was founded, as they tell it, before the flood. Iope is where the locals claim that Sephus was king, based on the proof that particular old altars with the greatest taboo continue to bear an inscription of that man and his brother Phineas. What is more, they even point out the huge bones of the sea monster as a clear reminder of the event celebrated in song and legend, and as a clear reminder of Andromeda, who was saved by Perseus. Pomponius Mela, in Romer 1998, 52-53-7, the official designation of Palestina by classical Jewish scholars. The same wider territorial concept of Palestine was embraced by classical Jewish writers, especially Josephus, 37 c. 100 AD, Hebrew, Yosef ben Mattishu, born in Jerusalem to a priestly family, and Philo of Alexandria, c. 25 BC c. 50 CE, Hebrew, Yedidiah Harcohen, also called Philo Judaeus, the Jewish philosopher and a contemporary of Jesus who lived in the Roman province of Egypt and became the most important representative of Hellenistic Judaism. Philo, whose father had apparently played a prominent role in Palestine before moving to Alexandria 8, wrote in Quod Omnis Probus Liber Sit 9 that 4000 Essenes 10, a Jewish sect that flourished from the 2nd century BC to the 1st century AD and who gained fame in modern times as a result of the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, lived in Palestine and Syria. Point 11 Hellenized Greek-speaking Jewish authors such as Philo and Josephus wrote in Standard Greek for educated Jewish classes in the region and for Roman and Greek audiences. Like Greek and Roman writers and many Jewish Roman citizens, both Josephus and Philo understood and applied the term Palestine to a greater Palestine extending from modern Lebanon to Egypt. Robinson 1865, 15, Jacobson 1999, and not just to Philistia, the coastal region of Palestine, or the former land of the Philistines from Gaza to Tantor. The official Roman designation of the province as Syria-Palestina existed long before the Jewish revolt of 66 to 69 AD. However, Vespasian, the patron of Josephus, who was personally involved in subduing the revolt in Judea, formally widened the territorial boundaries of Palestine and officially designated the whole country as a Palestine, and this is evident from Roman coins of the period. However, it would be wrong to assume that Roman Provincia Palestina displaced or replaced Judea. The latter simply was and remained one of the regions of Provincia Palestina. Judea was always seen as representing only a specific and small component of this greater whole, while Palestina was viewed by classical Greek and Jewish writers and Roman politicians as representative of their whole country from Phoenicia, mostly associated with modern Lebanon, to Egypt. Writing in the late 1st century, Josephus embraced the Roman patron-protégé system and himself would later write his history works Antiquities of the Jews, the Jewish War and Against Apion in Greek. In these works of history, Vespasian is positively remembered by Josephus. Josephus made a clear distinction between Syria and Palestine and endorsed Herodotus' account of Palestine from the 5th century BC. Josephus holds Herodotus in high esteem as the founder of historiography, recognizes his authority on ethnographical matters, praises his reliance on autopsy as a basis for knowledge, uses material, vocabulary and themes from the histories, and even uses historical information to correct the Bible. Priestley and Zarley 2016, 6. Although occasionally Josephus would refer to Palestina in connection with Philistia and their land of the Philistines, by and large he accepted the wider Roman conception of Palestine and used the name within the wider context of the official Roman designation and toponymic representation of the country. Flavius Josephus 1981, 2004, 2013. As with the iconography of the coinage of Philistia of the 5th and 4th centuries BC, discussed above, for many centuries Hellenistic and Athenian intellectual and artistic creations had exercised considerable influence on the culture of the coastal Palestinian cities of Ascalon, Gaza and Ashdod and their Hellenized intellectuals. The most famous Palestinian academic was Antiochus of Ascalon, 130-68, 67 BC, by far the most distinguished Palestinian philosopher of the Roman era. Born in the Palestinian city of Ascalon on the Mediterranean coast, Antiochus' compatriot Sosus of Ascalon, a Stoic, played an important part in his philosophical education. Sedley 2012, 11. Antiochus traveled to Athens, at the time the world's center of philosophy, at around 110 BC and became an eminent Platonic philosopher and a friend of Cicero, Rome's greatest politician and orator. The latter was his pupil in Athens in about 78-79 BC. Antiochus was a pupil of Philon of Larissa and succeeded Philon as the head of the new academy which had been founded in Athens by Plato. After teaching philosophy in Athens, he traveled to Alexandria and later founded his own school of philosophy which advocated the possibility of knowledge, thus reversing the skeptical tradition of the recent academy. Sedley 2012, 3. He also attempted to reconcile the principles of Platonic epistemology with those of the Stoics, and in 87-86 he went on a mission to Alexandria and the eastern provinces of the Roman Empire to spread his ideas. Gerson 2005, 42. Antiochus' school of philosophy, especially Antiochian epistemology and ethics, had a considerable impact among the Romans of his day. Cicero included. Sedley 2012, 4. Antiochus' influence at Alexandria was also considerable. Sedley 2012, 5. However, there is no evidence to suggest that Antiochus went back to teach in his native Ascalon. Nevertheless, as we shall see below, half a millennium after he led Platonic academies of Athens and Alexandria, another Greek-speaking Palestinian city on the Mediterranean coast, only 20 kilometers to the south of Ascalon, would replace both Athens and Alexandria as the most important center of classicizing Hellenistic philosophy in the Mediterranean region. The rise of Caesarea-Palestina. The Romans reoriented Palestine towards the Mediterranean region, and this resulted in the establishment and subsequent spectacular rise of the coastal city of Caesarea Maritima, Greek, Paralios Caesarea, which was also famously known as Caesarea-Palestina, or Caesarea of Palestine. For centuries, Caesarea-Palestina would serve as the capital of Palestine and one of the most important cultural centers in the Mediterranean region, in effect replacing the two great cities of Athens and Alexandria. Originally a Palestinian Phoenician village on the Mediterranean coast, Caesarea-Palestina became one of 4 Roman settlements, coloniae, for demobilized veterans in the province of Syria-Palestina. Butcher 2003, 230, named in honor of Augustus Caesar. The Roman city and its major harbor were spectacularly expanded by the Roman client king of Judea in Palestine, Herod the Great, Greek, Herodos, who ruled from 37 to 4 BC. Herod, whose ancestors were Idumeans, possibly of Nabatean Arab origins, who had converted to Hellenistic Judaism, became known for his colossal building program, including the construction of the port at Caesarea Maritima, the Greek-style temple in Jerusalem, Herod's temple, and the fortress at Masada. He also constructed or rebuilt several military forts along the Via Maris. Their construction of a massive port at Caesarea Maritima signaled the decline of Jaffa in importance as a historic harbour. 2 years after the death of Herod, Caesarea Maritima became the seat of a Roman prefect, head of an administrative area beginning in 6 AD. To distinguish Caesarea Maritima from Caesarea Philippi, or Caesarea Panias, a name which mutated into modern Arab Banyas in the Golan Heights, and Caesarea Cappadocia, modern Turkey, Caesarea Maritima became famously known throughout the Mediterranean region and Christian world as Caesarea-Palestina. The reputation of its academy, library and Christian scholars soared throughout the 6th centuries as it effectively replaced Alexandria as the most important learning center in the Eastern Mediterranean. Caesarea-Palestina was described in detail by the 1st century Roman Jewish historian Josephus in his work The Jewish War, 1981. As the headquarters of the Roman government in Palestine, Caesarea gradually became the largest and most important city in the country and the economic and political hub of Roman and Byzantine Palestine. Its predominance was elevated further after the Jewish Bar Kokhba revolt and war waged in the course of the later years of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, 132–136 AD. The city and its big harbour were extensively rebuilt by Hadrian, and at its height the city covered an urban area of nearly 1,000 acres, almost 5 times the size of Jerusalem. Praise for the splendour and physical attributes of Caesarea and other cities of provincial Palestina were common. In Roman sources, Ammianus Marcellinus, a 4th century Roman soldier and historian, born to a Greek-speaking pagan family in Syria or Phoenicia, whose work was highly regarded by English historian Edward Gibbon, describes provincial Palestina in c. 380 AD as follows. The last region of the Syrias is Palestine, extending over a great extent of territory and abounding in cultivated and well-kept lands. It also has some splendid cities, none of which yields to any of the others, but they rival one another, as it were, by plumb line. These are Caesarea, which Herods built in honor of the Emperor Octavianus, Eleutheropolis, Ibid-Gibron, and Neapolis in Nablus, along with Ascalon and Gaza, built in a former age. In these districts no navigable river is anywhere to be seen, but in numerous places natural warm springs gush forth, adapted to many medicinal uses. Ammianus Marcellinus c. 380, Book 14, 8, 11, cited in Johnson, L. 2036. From the early 3rd century Caesarea Palestina became the civil metropolis of Palestine, and later, when Palestine was divided into 3 provinces, see below, it remained the capital of Palestina Prima. In the 3rd and 4th centuries the diverse population of this pluralistic Mediterranean city included Greco-Roman citizens worshipping Greco-Roman deities, Samaritans, Greek and Aramaic-speaking Jews, Donaldson, 2000, Greek-speaking Christians, Aramaic-speaking Christians and Arab Christians.